Now that the transfer window is fully under commence, and what I mean by that is the World Cup is over and now we're fully focused on club football in the transfer window. I wanted to go through the 25-26 season and our squad for that season and see who would I sell, who would I keep, who would I loan, who's integral, must not sell, etc. And so this video we'll be doing a tier list which kind of breaks that down. And yeah, let's get into it. So let me break down this squad list and the tiers. First, we have must sell, which is I think quite obvious. Sell the player; he has to go this summer. Then there's loan, and what that means is that I'd prefer for him to go out and get some development. There's only one or two players I would really put in this category anyway. Indifferent is I don't really care that much if they sell or stay. And obviously it's a case by case basis, and then there's keep, which is I do not want them sold whatsoever. I might add tiers in the middle of this depending on how it feels, but for now that's kind of where we're at with this tier list. So I guess let's start. Max Dalman. I think this is the most obvious keep. I mean, I wouldn't mind if he went on loan, but I think he can have such a big impact for us now, and I think he's one of those players that can make things something happen at any moment, and so I wouldn't be opposed to seeing him go out on loan, maybe to a German team, for example, just for development. But the way our squad's built up, and when you look at Bakayo and his injuries and that type of thing, I think Max Zaman can really play a role, at least some sort of role this season for us in terms of all comps. So I would keep him for sure. Trossard, I mean, he's already been sold, so I'll just put him in the must sell. Norgard, I don't think there's much to say with him. I'm kind of indifferent. If he stays, then sure, he's kind of going to play the same role he played last season. Hopefully he gets a little bit more minutes and we trust him a little bit more, but I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he just got the same minutes he did last season. So I don't think I really care too much about whether he stays or goes, honestly. Kepa, I'm pretty indifferent as well. I mean, I'd rather get a better goalkeeper, but if we're targeting high profile players and that means that we don't have the budget to get a backup goalkeeper instead, that's fine because I think backup goalkeepers, a very low tier want in our summer window. I didn't even put it in our transfer needs. So I would just, indifferent. If he goes, great. We have Melier and maybe we buy a backup goalkeeper. If not, then it is what it is. Kepa, Rhea, I obviously keep. I think this is the best goalie in the world, if not top three. And so why would you ever let him go? Havertz, I'm kind of floating, and the reason why I'm floating is not because of player quality, because I think Havertz is so important to our team. The reason why I'm floating is because I'm unsure of his fitness. Assuming he stays fit, he's a keep. But if he's, consistently getting injuries, and Arsenal, I think reports came out last season that they were kind of questioning his fitness, then I could see him going in indifferent for me. But assuming he's fit, I'll keep him in keep because he's been fit for a while. He was fit for Germany, now he's fit for us. So in the preseason, so I'll assume he's fit. Odegaard, this might be the first controversial one. I think I'm indifferent. He's not in the must sell category yet. He has 2 years left on his contract, so even next summer he'll have some value. And we'll definitely probably break our transfer sale if we sell him next summer. The reason why he's indifferent is because I still feel as though he has something to give us, but I am rapidly giving up on him if I'm being honest. And what I mean by that is that this season, if he's not already sold in this summer, this season he has to prove his worth. And if he doesn't prove his worth, then he'll be in the must sell category for me next summer. But for this summer, I'm indifferent. If he goes, obviously I'd be kind of sad, and sad in terms of from an emotional standpoint, not from a player profile standpoint, because I understand that we can upgrade on him. But if he stays, that's fine with me as well. Gyökeres, I think I'm in the same category, but I'm closer to Marcel. Maybe I feel like I should add a thing in between saying I would sell but I think that might be too. I don't know. I think for me, I'm indifferent for him because me personally, I would sell him. So maybe I do add a tier, at a row below that says, I don't know, uh, could sell or should sell. Let's do should sell. Sorry. Anyway, I would put Gyökeres probably here because I don't really want him in our squad next summer. I don't think he's going to do any better than he did this season, and I think this season showed enough to say that he's not at our level. Um, and given all the rumors with Atletico Madrid's interest in him, I don't understand why we couldn't, get rid of him now, and maybe that helps us with Alvarez deal in terms of a swap, or, you know, we go in and reinvest in Krupi. I don't know. I would definitely, especially because the market is there in terms of Atletico Madrid and probably some other clubs as well. I would definitely get rid of him while his stock is higher than it might be at the end of next season. Ben White, this is going to be hard to say, but I would probably say should sell. And the reason is because if he was consistently fit, I'd put indifferent because, or if I would put it keep. But because he is not shown that he's shown that he cannot stay fit consistently and we cannot rely on him. I think right now he's kind of just taking a place up in the squad. And look, I love Ben White, and if he were to leave, he would leave as a player that I definitely loved during his time at Arsenal, and he would definitely always have his respect or my respect for sure. But my issue is with, unlike Kai Havertz, where now we're seeing him on a phase of fitness, and he's only really had one season where he's really been in and out, in and out. I feel like Ben White has been out for a long time and barely been in the past 2 seasons. And so because of that, I'm kind of concerned that, he's just over the hill in terms of player fitness. And then on top of that, I think there's still some interest in him now, whereas, next season there might not be. I think now we could still get a decent fee for him, whereas next season there might not be. So obviously this again depends on player fitness, but for me, for now, unfortunately, as Arteta said, harsh decisions have to be made, and I would probably let him go. Mika Moreno, that's a keep. I don't like, he's a squad player for us, a good squad player. He showed his use in every tournament and every stage. Most games he shows his use, so I don't see why we would sell him. I think this one is pretty obvious as well. I don't even think I need to speak about Declan Rice and why we should keep him. It's pretty obvious. Gabriel Jesus, the first real entry into must sell. Let me remove Trossard from there because that feels disrespectful. Gabriel Jesus is on 200 and something K a week. Let's say I've seen 220, I've seen 275, I've seen 250. It doesn't matter. He's on 200 something K a week, and he can barely play for us. We saw it last season. This guy is barely physically at the level anymore to play in the Prem. And I don't think he gives us anything. He doesn't give us an option off the bench because when he comes off the bench, he can't press like we would want him to. We can't start him because physically he's incapable of playing a 90-minute or even the 60 minutes at Prem level. We have other players to play in the cups. Let's say if we kept Gyökeres, we have Gyökeres and Havertz to play in the cups, and Mika Moreno can feature there, and there's definitely other options we can have at the 9. And so I don't think Gabriel Jesus serves any purpose in our squad at the moment, just from a physical standpoint. Obviously, technically, he probably still has the technical attributes, but just physically, he's cooked. And so at some point, you kind of just have to, call it a day and say, hey, respect, man. You came to us and you really elevated us and pushed us to a title contender. And thankfully, unlike Zinchenko, you actually won the league here with us. I would have liked Zinchenko to win it as well, just because of, how pivotal they were to this change from a top 4 challenging side to a title challenging side and eventually a title winning side. You won that league with us, but I think it's just time to go, man. It's time to go our separate ways. Timber, this is a must keep. Same with Zubi. I don't think there's any contention here. Even Saka, even Gabriel, even Eze, these Saliba, my goodness. These are all must keeps for me. I don't think there's any reason to debate that. I think every one of those players I just put in probably at their best will start for us and be a part of our best starting 11. And that includes Eze for me. That includes Zubamendi for me until Bruno Guimaraes comes in. If he comes in, of course. And so those are all must keeps. I think the most important thing here is just keeping all of them players fit, and that includes Rice, that includes Timber, that includes Saka, that includes Saliba, and Calafiori. Keep them fit, and they will always be in the must keep for me because they are so pivotal to what we do, and they're such good players for us. Nani Madueke. Um, I mean, I think this is where a lot of people would have him in a various different ranges. I know, some people like Turkish would put him in must sell. I think some people would put him in indifferent. I would probably say keep. And the reason, maybe I'd go indifferent actually. And the reason for that is just because if he stays, and I expect him to stay, I think he has a good profile to develop under Arteta and slowly get better and better. I don't think I have an issue with him being the backup right winger and coming in when Saka isn't fit. And he can also deputize on the left wing, and so he gives us options and solutions, and he's definitely has the pace and the physical profile to stay in the Prem. And so I don't really mind him staying. I think he's shown his class to some extent, that he has the ability at times to make the right final decision. He just needs to get more consistent with that. But his ability to get to the area where he needs to make the final decision is very, very good. And so I would keep him, and I would say, you know what, like, just keep letting him develop. But I could understand, if we got a crazy offer for him, obviously you let him go. Whereas a lot of these players, I think it would be very hard for me to want to let them go. Mascara. This is another one where I'm indifferent. And so what I mean by that is I remember earlier in the window there were rumors that we were looking to sell him for 50 million, or if a bid came in for roughly 50, 60 million, we'd let him go. And that is something I completely agree with. If Brighton came in instead of for Vuskovic, they came in for, I don't know, they came in for Mascara for 50 million, I would say, yeah, take that and run, because there are more rare profiles that you can get for a similar price of 50 million, or you can reinvest that to get a more rare profile. Mascara, 13 million pounds, despite his profile in terms of it being very common, that price point makes him such a good purchase because he is a good defender. We've seen him a good defender as a center back. We've seen him be able to deputize at right back, and he's the bruiser type. He's the aggressive type. He's the more offensive, and I guess physical type in terms of how he plays in a back two. He reminds me of a Gabriel when he was younger a little bit, right? Sometimes he can be clumsy on the ball, and sometimes he can, make a few mistakes, but in terms of in the duels, he's pretty strong. He's unlike Gabriel, I guess he's more nimble, and he kind of has a build similar to Saliba in that sense, where he's nimble, but he isn't the Saliba profile type, the central center back profile type, which makes me believe that he's not as rare of a profile, which makes me believe that, if we got a good bid in for him, I wouldn't mind letting him go. Of course, good player for us, and I would like to keep him because he's a great Gabriel backup, but if the right fee were to come in and we could reinvest that in a rare profile, I would take that all day. I think this one is probably the hardest one to decide. Let me put Hincapié at keep because we just bought him, so it doesn't even make sense to even let debate on what we're gonna do with him. So he's obviously a keep, and I think there's two others I should just get rid of, and that's Fabio Vieira. Unfortunately, physically, you're just not at the level. Technically, you definitely have the level to compete in the Prem, but just physically, you've shown that you're not able to compete. And so unfortunately, it's time to go. And same with Reiss Nelson, we've kept you around for a long time. And it's just time to go. We're not gonna, I don't think you really deputize much for us under Arteta, or just in general. You're not at the level, I don't think physically, but I also don't think mentally. I know you have technical attributes for sure, but I think it's a mental thing. I think Reiss Nelson, kind of like Jadon Sancho, is just, he's kind of weak mentally. He's not really intrinsically motivated like he needs to be to compete at this level. So I think it's just time to go, and that would be some good wages off the book. So those three for sure from here, it's time to go. And I think these three are probably, you know what? Not these three. I'd put Lewis Skelly in keep. I think that's pretty obvious. In terms of, he can deputize in midfield. He can deputize at left back. He's a young player, and with a very high ceiling, and so I don't understand why you would let him go unless it's for an insane fee. Um, and you can reinvest it in, a more established or a better pro player at this moment. Um, and hopefully with a higher ceiling as well. Like if you were to let him go, but you were to bring in Alex Scott, I'd be like, you know what, fairs, because Lewis Skelly for me still has some weaknesses in as a midfielder that Alex Scott is more refined in at the moment. So I wouldn't mind that, but it's very rare for me to feel like giving up Lewis Skelly for anyone would be worth it. And then it comes down to the final two. I'm just gonna put him as should sell because I just feels it doesn't. He's not a must sell. He wasn't a must sell, but he's definitely a should sell, and we did sell him. So there we go. These two I think are probably the hardest two. So I'm glad they're last. I'm glad I left them to last because look, with Martinelli, I feel obviously an emotional attachment. I think I've seen this guy from just like Bakayla from game one to now, from when he came in for I think it was 7 million from Brazil, fourth tier Brazil was it, to now. Um, I've seen him every step of the way, and so obviously for me, it's kind of there's some attachment there, and unfortunately because of his dips in performances across the seasons, obviously that emotional investment has decreased more and more and more, but it would be very sad for me to see him go. But I can't say he's in that keep category for sure. And in my opinion, I don't think I can put him in the indifferent category either. Maybe I could actually, but I think he's definitely in the indifferent should sell or must sell. The reason for it is because look, his profile isn't the worst profile in the world, and his profile isn't something that isn't valuable. It is valuable to have a runner, to have someone that is able to attack in transition and impact the game in transition. My issue is that sometimes his final ball is lacking. And in games where we need ball to feet players, he cannot do that role at all. He's not ball to feet at all, and he doesn't really serve as he doesn't serve a function against a low block at times, right? Like it's okay with him being one of your runners, but since you're already invested in Madueke, I feel like we need to raise the technical quality and just the overall quality of the team. I think Nani Madueke being your profile, that is your pacey winger in transition that gives you moments in terms of threat and gives you that ball to feet presence is there. Nani Madueke has it. Nani Madueke is worse than Martinelli in the sense that Nani Madueke cannot finish like Martinelli can. Martinelli has a good finish, unlike Madueke. So, I feel like those two profiles are so similar that it's kind of hard for me to want to keep Madueke and also keep Martinelli. Since Martinelli only has 2 years left on his contract, it makes much more sense to get rid of Martinelli. And I think he would serve a higher fee. And I know a lot of people hype him up as, he could play as a striker, but I think we would have seen it more if Arteta wanted to profile him like that, but he hasn't. So I would put him, honestly, in indifferent. It's really hard for him. I'd probably put him in should sell because he's one of those players that we can definitely upgrade on, but I think it really much depends on who we can bring in at left wing. If we can bring in, a Vinny or Barcola, then he's definitely in should sell. But if we can't, then I'd be indifferent. So I'm going to go should sell because we should be bringing in a left winger to upgrade on him. But I don't know. It's kind of hard to say. It's very hard between these two because, like I said, similar profile to Nani Madueke, and he's kind of shown that he has severe limitations, and we don't play in a transitional sense that suits him too often. And he's also shown that in transitional moments, he can and probably will have a bad moment or two, a bad final ball, a bad final action. And since we just invested in Nani Madueke, you kind of have to choose one of the two for me in terms of that profile, especially when you already have Gyökeres. Having 3 runners on top of 3 ball to feet in the forward line, I don't like that. I don't like that balance in terms of technical quality. So I would probably get rid of Martinelli. But if we can't get a left winger and we get Alvarez instead, then I'd move him into indifferent. And then finally, to end the video off, it's Nwaneri, and I think this one is probably the hardest one to rank for me. And it's because he's shown the technical quality to be a useful player for us. It feels like he's developed into a Phil Foden type, or he is a Phil Foden type, which means that he has the technical quality and he has the moments and he has the ball striking, but he's very limited in terms of how he plays. And so it feels like to me that I could see him being one of those players that if we needed money, we would sell him. But I would loan him for now just to get additional squad development and refine his game a little bit more to be able to impact the game from a physical presence. And then hopefully develop him into a Phil Foden type that, can help us like Phil Foden has for Manchester City multiple times. But I think this is my final tier list. Obviously some harsh decisions, probably, or hard decisions, obviously with Gyökeres, White, Martinelli, Odegaard, but I think it is what it is. I think this is the main way we can go to. Oops. This is the main way we can go to developing our team, and so what needs to be done needs to be done, and so that's my tier list. Let me know in the comments if you guys agree, disagree, or how you feel about that in general. And yeah, like, share, subscribe, comment, and take care.